All right, let's get into this discussion now. And corruption at institutions of higher learning run deep. This is according to a member of the National Assembly's Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Tebogo Letsie. Addressing the committee on the country's readiness for the next academic year, Letsie speaking about criminal networks that are collapsing the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, for example. And let's get some reaction now, and we speak to Professor Ahmed Bawa. He is with the University of Johannesburg's Business School, but you'll also remember him as the CEO of Universities South Africa. Well, that role, he has since left it, but Prof, that is the role that I'd like to speak to you as, in your capacity as former CEO of Universities South Africa. When you hear such comments from members of the Portfolio Committee in Parliament that corruption at institutions of higher learning runs deep, are they correct in their assessment, or is it hyperbole?
First of all, let me say thank you for having me, Tole. I wish that MPs, when they make these kinds of comments, that they would kind of put forward the details, so that we can actually, so that they can be investigated, so that they can be. We shouldn't tolerate corruption anywhere. And if there's detail, then there should be kind of investigations done. I mean, so I don't have any. I'm not suggesting that there's no corruption going on in the universities. However, on the issue that MP Letsie is talking about, it's not in the interest of the universities at all to kind of fabricate students, because actually every single year there's a complete audit of every student that's at a university.
Yeah.
Students are registered at universities. The government pays subsidy on the basis of those students to the universities. NSFAS contributes funding to the students so that they can study at the universities. But there's a database which is called HEMIS, the Higher Education Management Information System, which is based at DHET. And universities have to present audited data of every student to the DHET for it to be uploaded on that HEMIS database. Now, there's no possibility of universities just kind of fabricating students, because those students are all citizens or international students who have ID numbers and so on.
Yeah.
So it seems to me, at least, that that when such accusations are made, that it would be really helpful if those accusations came with data, with actual information. So that's the one point I want to make. The second point I want to make is that actually there's no mystery about this. By the way, it's, we've had this experience for a long time, that there are students who apply to a university, get accepted to it. Let me just give you an example. Student applies to two universities in KZN, DUT and UKZN. Student gets accepted at DUT, student registers. 2 weeks later, the student finds that he or she has been offered a place at UKZN. They go to UKZN and they register. But they don't deregister from DUT. But all of that gets cleaned up in the audits that then take place. So it seems to me that there might be very logical reasons why NSFAS is paying money to more than one institution for the single student. You see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And then I'd like to make a third point, and the third point is that we've been saying for years and years and years now that the system, the technology system at NSFAS really needs to be designed so that it can speak directly to the university systems. There shouldn't be the need for universities to do downloads and so on. That there should be a seamless system. And that has never been constructed, That will just obviate... Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry to cut in. Let's perhaps hone in on exactly the topic you are exploring right now, and that is those are the challenges, documented challenges around the NSFAS program.
Yeah.
Is your argument that the problems experienced there are right down to dysfunction or mismanagement and less to do with corruption? Is that your argument?
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily, kind of dysfunctionality either, See, if a student registers at DUT, pays a registration fee, and then 2 weeks later disappears, goes somewhere else, or leaves university for some reason or the other, but without telling DUT that he or she is doing that, that's not a dysfunctionality. That's just the fact that, when the audit is done, it will all be cleaned up, if you like, So, so it seems to me at least that there might well be some dysfunctionality. Sure, I understand that. But, it raises for me a much more serious point, and that is that if NSFAS is having a problem with universities A, B, C, and D, then it should really be in a position to talk to those universities and to sort it out, It seems to me that the level of communication between the universities and NSFAS now has never been as bad as it is now. I mean, that's my sense of it.
Well, that is a problem, though, Professor, is it not?
It's a very major problem.
Because NSFAS has been around for some time. If communication between this institution and the universities has not improved, and if anything, based on your assessment, is that it is getting worse, then administratively, that is a problem.
It's absolutely a problem. And the fact of the matter is that clearly there's it's a triangle, right? So you've got the universities, you've got NSFAS, and you've got students. And they kind of really, and it's that triumvirate that has to work, if you like, jointly, to have a successful student financial aid system.
Professor Bawa?
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you there. I want to move on from the NSFAS element and bring up another very public example of a university that has struggled, not just one, perhaps, two universities. So you have UNISA, which has its own documented problems, and then you have the University of Fort Hare, where corruption and the killing of people, there's an ongoing case that continues there. Do we have a problem with our higher education institutions and their reputations? Is there a reputational risk that is now being faced by these institutions?
Sure. I think that's a very real situation. The fact that this does actually have implications for institutional reputation. So not just institutional, also sector-wide. You see, MP Letsia speaks about universities, so it's also about the sector. But let me just differentiate between those two. See, the Fort Hare situation tells us in very clear terms that universities are not islands, that they are part of society, that they are kind of really subjected to the same kind of, corruptive behaviors, that are present in society more generally. And that when universities stand up to those, then there's the danger of the kinds of activities that we've seen there. So there's, it's a clear indication that universities are not isolated from the challenges of broader society.
Yeah.
The case of UNISA is different, of course. The case of UNISA it's a matter of internal governance. It's a matter of, the council kind of having a particular kind of role to play and so on and so forth. Those are very different. And they have to be dealt with in different ways, it seems to me. What the Fort Hare situation tells you really is that, the state of policing and so on is just not there, is very poor. It means that the university can't rely on, on the normal channels for investigations and so on.
Yeah.
The case of UNISA, it's something else. There, the minister and the department have taken certain steps, and those need to be followed through. Of course, there's an impasse at the moment, but hopefully that will unravel, and that needs to be dealt with, I think.
Yeah. Prof, I want to agree with you that universities are not islands, as you say, and that they exist within the broader society of South Africa. Having said that, Professor, yes, indeed, what is happening at these universities is a microcosm of the broader South African society. Is the leadership, therefore, the leadership as demonstrated by Minister Nzimande, is that showing in how he is trying to deal with the impact of potential risk to the reputations of these institutions?
Yeah, I think that there needs to be a much more partnership approach, between the minister, the department, and the universities in that endeavor. I think that there needs to be kind of a much more concerted effort to build a sectoral approach. When I say sectoral approach, I mean including the Department of Higher Education and Training in those actions. Clearly, the minister has a very good sense of what universities are like. He worked at universities and so on, so he knows. But at the same time, I think that what we are also seeing is a kind of erosion of trust between the department and the universities, and that needs to be kind of revitalized. It seems to me, needs to be kind of put back onto a better footing. In the case of NSFAS, it seems to me at least that NSFAS has completely torn itself away from the Department of Higher Education and Training, which is a very major problem, because the Department of Higher Education and Training sat in a kind of nexus between the universities and NSFAS, and it was the body that really ensured that there was smooth operations, if you like. So it seems to me that we really have to think about this, about the issues of corruption and reputation damage and so on. We have to think about it in a holistic way rather than just pointing fingers at different people.
Sure. Finally, Professor, we know that one of the biggest stakeholders that benefit out of these institutions, it is the student who is produced and then has to go into the world of work. Do you think that, based on what is happening right now at these institutions or in this sector, does that pose a risk to students who come out of those institutions as holistic human beings who are going out there to contribute positively to the betterment of South Africa?
Yeah. Look, I always go back to this point, that actually, if one looks at the unemployment rate of graduates, and, if there's one graduate who's unemployed, that's bad. But if one looks at the unemployment rate of graduates, it's considerably lower than the unemployment rate of non-graduates. So, I am not of the view that our graduates are not being absorbed by the economy, not being absorbed into the labor market and so on. I'm of the view, in fact, that the contribution of universities in terms of the production of graduates is still a very good value for money proposition for young people and for their families.
Yeah. All right. Professor Ahmed Bawa, let me thank you very much for your time. He is with the Johannesburg Business School now, but we were talking to him in his capacity as former CEO of Universities South Africa. Are you concerned about the state of our universities?